Hey everyone, Wolflord Ro here. Today we discuss the call of the Astronomicon and the sacrifice of the Psyker. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself, without spoilers. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, earlier in the week I decided to ask for some input on to what my next read should be. So I put a couple of options up on Insta, and last time I checked, Krieg was winning pretty comfortably. So hopefully sometime over the Christmas weekend I'll be diving into my new read there. I haven't read much of Krieg in the novels so far, so I'm looking forward to this one. However, while I was waiting for the poll to give me a winner, I decided to give the novel Witchbringer by author Stephen B. Fisher a read. On the face of it, a bit of a unique prospect. A story following an Imperial Psyker. A viewpoint that we rarely, if ever, receive. Most certainly not outside the Astartes at least. And it really opened my eyes onto the realities of life for a Psyker within the Imperium. While perhaps for some races psychic prowess is the norm, or something to be valued, as with the craft world Eldari, for the Imperium nothing could be further from the truth. While undoubtedly psychic potential is seen as a useful tool by the institution at large, it's also something inherently feared by the people, despised, even hated. One of the key tenets of the Imperial Creed, the very foundation and fabric of the Imperium, is to purge the heretic, beware the Psyker and mutant, and abhor the alien. So it's little wonder such fear dominates its people. And in this new age of psychic awakening, with the rate of psychic developments becoming more and more frequent across the human race, that fearful mania only continues to grow. It's incredibly ironic. An Imperium that worships the most powerful human Psyker to have ever existed as a god, fears that very ability being shown in its people. Something the Emperor actually wanted all humanity to achieve. The entire purpose of his plan was to shepherd humanity into its next evolution. One of psychic enlightenment. Now, for all that scorn a Psyker may receive from their former family, their friends and comrades, there is one source they can always find comfort in: the God Emperor of mankind. Perhaps no different to any Imperial citizen. Uniquely for a Psyker, however, they are able to take that one step further. To see, to hear the Emperor's will. The golden light of the Astronomicon. Now, the Astronomicon, as we know, is essentially there to enable the Imperium to successfully navigate the warp. From Terra it pierces out across the galaxy, an invisible force of psychic light. This is able to be seen by the Imperial navigators, allowing them to plot a course through the otherwise madness of the Immaterium. Now, such was the Emperor's might in the days of the Great Crusade. He was able to power and guide this across the galaxy, all by himself, and all the while prosecuting his campaigns, truly showcasing how formidable a power he was. Since the Emperor's interment upon the throne, however, the Astronomicon has required other Psykers to aid in powering it. This then is still guided and thrown out across the galaxy by the immortal God Emperor. How can this be true if the Emperor now is possibly more powerful than ever? Well, obviously a lot in regards to the Emperor is left to mystery. However, let's not forget his 10,000-year struggle upon the throne is entirely down to still holding closed the portal upon Terra. The limitless legions of chaos are still hammering against the portal to this day. In the grim darkness of the current Imperium, it takes 10,000 Psykers to power the Astronomicon effectively. A death sentence for each and every one of them. Now, while the premise of the Astronomicon may be one of navigation, we have seen previously how it provides other benefits. Thanks to the novel The Emperor's Legion, part of the Watchers of the Throne series by author Chris Wright, we were able to see how the Astronomicon actually acts like an immense figurative comfort blanket, spreading across the galaxy to all the people of the Imperium. In the immediate days following Cadia's destruction, when the Astronomicon inexplicably went out, the people of the galaxy became gripped by an unescapable fear. It was only when the Emperor's psychic lights flared back out across the galaxy that the sense of reassurance returned. And again, it's just worth restating, the Astronomicon cannot be seen by the naked eye. Most Imperial citizens live out their lives completely unaware of the benefits it provides. So whether intentional by the Emperor or not, it appears his psychic will does far more than simply act as a beacon. Now, when it comes to the Psykers, thanks to a Militarum Psyker by the name of Glavia Erend within the novel Witchbringer, we are able to know the comfort the Astronomicon can provide to them as well. Now, during Glavia's training to harness and control her powers, we're able to see how she perceives the Astronomicon. And perhaps the first interesting detail is, despite not being on Terra, or even close to it for that matter, she can hear the screams of the Psykers powering the Astronomicon. With Glavia still training, we can't be sure if this is something Psykers learned to block out, or if it was just an isolated incident, a novice not in control of her abilities, or even if it's simply always the case. But in not being able to block out the sound, Glavia then attempts to pray to the God Emperor. And this is where it gets more interesting, as we're told when she closes her eyes, she can see the golden light. And in sitting down to pray and focusing her mind, she is instinctively drawn to the Emperor's light. 5 years ago, she had not even known what to look for. 4 years ago, she had not wanted to see. 2 years ago, it had still pained her to look upon it for too long. But now she could not turn away even if she wished to. Slowly the light of the Astronomicon swelled within her, washing her skin in a prickling, burning peace. Like a pillar of living, breathing fire, the psychic beacon lanced through the fabric of the Immaterium, carrying the God Emperor's will and his power to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. For me, this is a really interesting brief little passage. As we can see here, Glavia is almost drawn towards it, not being able to turn away even if she wished to, but also that it's taken her time, and assumedly training, to be able to find it, which would imply Psykers are trained in some way to find the Astronomicon. And that would make sense on a couple of different levels. Firstly, as can be seen from that brief passage, the Astronomicon fills her with a great sense of peace and comfort. The light of the Astronomicon swelled within her, washing her skin in a prickling, burning peace. It would make sense for a Psyker to use the Emperor's Light in this way, but not simply just for mental reassurance, but for protection and aid against the perils a Psyker faces as well, those of the warp. Being able to find the Emperor's Light when your mind is cast into the Immaterium is a very important thing, something that would undoubtedly save many Psykers' lives. It's also said that gazing upon the Astronomicon for too long can cause Psykers to lose their minds, so you would assume that that danger is a part of a Psyker's training as well, that they are taught not only how to find it, but to not get lost within the golden light. And there's also one more important aspect. As Glavia draws closer to the Astronomicon, she sees it's actually a column of 10,000 individual lights, the 10,000 Psykers giving their lives upon Terra. 10,000 strained angelic voices, screaming their own harmonies into the endless void. 10,000 chosen, 10,000 dying Psykers, seated in the chamber of the Astronomicon, beside the God Emperor himself, on holy Terra, throwing their minds and his will into the frigid, lifeless reaches of the warp, knowing they had no hope of surviving the act. For me, this is intriguing, as the image I've always had is of the Psykers being nothing more than fuel, dragged to Terra within the black ships and locked within the Astronomicon. However, here you get a very different impression. Glavia realizes the sacrifice being made by these Psykers, one not envied, but you almost get the sense that this is one they perform willingly, despite the ultimate cost, that there is no greater service in the Imperium than giving your life to aid the God Emperor. And perhaps that's the truth, perhaps it's not. Maybe the reality is somewhere in between. However, that's the takeaway that Glavia appears to take from this, at least in my impression. 10,000 strained, angelic voices, screaming their own harmonies into the endless void. 10,000 chosen, 10,000 dying Psykers, seated in the chamber of the Astronomicon, beside the God Emperor himself. Those key couple of phrases for me, 10,000 strained angelic voices screaming their own harmonies into the endless void, and throwing their minds and his will into the frigid, lifeless reaches of the warp, knowing they had no hope of surviving the act. Again, for me, just kind of gives the impression they know all too well the duty they are performing. And this description all really ties it together in one very unifying way, summing up a Psyker's existence within the Imperium. It's no wonder a Psyker may look to the Astronomicon for that measure of peace, because it symbolizes not only the power, the light of their Lord, the continued existence of their God, but also too, a symbol, a measure of their own service. In his sacrifice, they see a reflection of their own. Because to be a Psyker within the Imperium of mankind is to perform the ultimate sacrifice. Cast out, feared, maligned, hated by the very people you strive to protect. The sacrifice of the Psyker. But as always everyone, what do you think? Why do you feel the Psykers of the Imperium are drawn to the Astronomicon, the Emperor's golden light? Is it an intended effect by the Emperor of mankind? To give his people a measure of peace? To give his people a measure of psychic reassurance? Or is it simply an unintended byproduct? Something that perhaps has evolved with his evolution to godhood? Do you feel the psykers of mankind are trained in how to use the Astronomicon for their own benefit? Whether it's a simple moral compass, or a light within the madness of the Immaterium. We know Astartes librarians, for examples, can fulfill the role of navigator for a short period of time if the need arises. So how much do you feel the lesser psykers of mankind, those of the Militarum for example, use the Astronomicon to their own benefit? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.